Hello, my friends. Back again. Hey, this is 2 in like 3 weeks. I don't know how regular we're going to be doing this, but going to try to do a bit more. Get John on here whenever he is available. I've been running around London, doing sessions and things, trying to set up some remote stuff. So yeah, John should be on. John joined. Should be here shortly. Go grab him right now.
Yeah, there it is.
Do I have you? Can you hear me? Can I hear you?
I can hear you.
That's beautiful. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. It's a lovely day in LA. The gray is dispersed. I started the day with tennis, and it's just been a great day.
Nice, man. It's nice to see your face. I know people have been excited for us to get back on. I talked to Kian a couple of weeks ago, and we're going to start doing a few of these here and there. But people are clamoring. The internet is ablaze with the excitement of the two of us back together.
When was the last time we did this? How do we do this for like 90 weeks straight, and then we just stop for like 50 weeks?
Well, at the risk of repeating,
it's my fault.
I think we've talked about it a little bit. Well, it's both of our faults. It's Instagram's fault. It's also, we did a lot of things and said a lot of things and got a lot of good knowledge out there. And I think people really appreciated it. And I think we both felt in our own ways, which we could talk about today and talk about what it did for us, but to take a little break from the online discourse and focus on making records. Which I know we've both done quite a bit. We've both done a bunch of traveling, and we can talk about all this kind of stuff. But I think it's been good to get some space from it and go make records. And now we can come back and catch up on things that we've talked about in the last few years, catch up on recent projects, obviously very exciting things for you recently, this Billie Eilish album, which you co-mixed, which we'll certainly get into. And just the general feeling of being back it's a nice thing.
Yeah. I was really excited about this. I mean, we tried to do it last week, and then I was sick. And anyway, stoked to be back. I love that people were excited. And I just genuinely there's so much that I've been experimenting with that. The amount of records and in different genres, and just the experimentation of the mixing process, in a sense of returning back to when I was like 17, 18, when I started doing this. Like, I feel like this whole year has been more of what I did when I was a kid than when I, thought I knew how to mix records.
Yeah.
And that's been the most exciting path this year. Just rediscovering.
What do you think? I'm going to open this door over here because I think my Wi-Fi is a little dodgy. What do you think are the big reasons that you were able to get back to that? I think it's something that you and I've talked about over the years of as you get older and learn about the business and learn about your habits and get comfortable with things. And then, it's easy to kind of get stale and feel like you're doing the same things all the time. What were the,
I'll be really honest. That's what we've been known here to be, to be brutally honest, which I think has gotten me in a little bit of trouble, with people and
I think you're doing fine.
My career. Thanks. But I think I had a pretty slow year last year for a lot of reasons, emotional reasons, just life reasons. But I wasn't feeling inspired by the stuff that I was working on a lot last year, because not that the music wasn't good or innovative or interesting. I think I was just doing a lot of the same things, and we were talking about a lot of things. So I was locked into I said this thing, I should do this thing. I'm trying this thing, I should do this thing. And I this year, I jumped in, for example, I think I've done 5 full albums already this year. I've done a lot more than that. Actually, it's been I'm very grateful, great year for me, but project based, where you're getting different types of records, different producers on the same records, or the same albums by one producer, and you have to find this continuity, and every album is going to be different, right? So instead of doing my own thing, I basically, practice this on the Billie album, which is, we can get there on, for a few reasons. But this was very inspired by the fact that when you put those stems in a session with my template, and my template is very minimal, as soon as I put it through the template, it started to sound more like me than it did like the album that was supposed to be. And I very much, and shout out to my dear friend and brother, Aaron Forbes, who I co-mixed that album with, who kind of recognized it too. And we both said, I don't even think he asked me to do this. I just was very frank about the fact that I think we should just go with no template. And he was like, yeah, obviously. Like, let's just start from scratch on this, with every song dictating to us what the song needs to be. And
can I just break that down real quick, which is that you know, people talk about production templates and that sort of thing. You had a, maybe you still have, but you have a template that when you get stems to mix, you are putting it through. So the first time you listen to it, it's going through a set of settings that whether it's a mix bus, a vocal chain, whatever it is,
some
that is
already subgroups with like imagers and just very minimal, but enough where it's noticeable. And without listening to them raw, you're listening to them through your template first. Okay. And so for this one, you decade, for the last 10 years.
And that a template, as we've talked about, has evolved over the years, mix bus, various other things. But so with this Billy album, with Aaron, who you co-mixed with, you brought up these stems, and immediately it was like, this sounds like it's filtered through my thing. Maybe I shouldn't do that.
Exactly. It was instinct. I mean, for example, I put the VT5, like my desert island analog piece of gear, on her voice, and the minute it went on the voice, I said, oh my God, what happened? Like, doesn't sound like Billy anymore. That, honestly, like, shout out to one of the best EQs I've ever used in my entire career. I use it on 90+%. It didn't make that album except for on strings. It sounded amazing on the strings. It just didn't make it. It just made it sound too. I don't even know how to. I can pontificate on what that was. What that feeling was. It wasn't right, and it was very obvious. Like any sort of, I mean, the most exciting part, when I talk about the experimentation of this year, it's a lot of trying different tools that might do the same thing on different sound sources, and spending the time to really listen and say, what is it doing better and what is it doing worse? And that could be a different tape saturation plugin or a different SSL channel strip, like G or J, and just listening to once you engage it, what is it doing? Like, and just really listening and focusing. And that's kind of been my thing for a long time. But this year, I felt like I was starting from scratch. I took a good break and I went to New York for a bit. And I came back knowing I had this album for that my very good friend Alex Goose produced for Aaron Frazier, which I think comes out next weekend or something like that. And I had that booked. It was for January 4th. And I was going in thinking, this is a genre that I don't normally work in. It's a bit more in the indie rock kind of soul throwbacky lane. And I've been a fan. I love his music. So I'm stoked to dive in with my friends, on this album. And right from the get, like, there was nothing that I do normally that was right for his sound. So I thought so the whole story of this year has been, I'm going to just try new things. And a lot of it goes back to what I was doing when I was 18, 17. That's why I brought that up to start with. Like, a lot of the things I landed on are channel strip things, like very basic, the fundamentals of what you learn from mixing on a console, for example, like the analog chain just done in a digital realm, and I think that's where I've landed. And a lot of the Billy album is like an SSL channel strip with the channel compressor on the vocal and, some ozone tape, because the texture of that worked on like a lot of the records on her voice. And instead of EQing, you're just like, how do I enhance this like perfectly recorded vocal? I mean, it's a dream, when you get something that emotive, just raw. The first thing I did was just solo the voice, and like on the first song, like, what am I doing today? Like, this is my day.
Do you know the vocal chain or chains that they were using?
Not really. I think the 251.
Yeah.
I think that was
something,
the mic. I don't really know the
nice.
I didn't ask. To be honest, I didn't ask Phineas. I think it's a 251, the mic. But there's some handheld. There's some some songs where it's writing in the room. I think she talked about that in an interview that she did with Zane Lowe. It was just like, how do you get out of the way of this? But it's not only for her album that I'm saying. It's kind of been everything this year so far, that it's been, I don't want people to listen to these albums and know that I mixed it. I want them to think it sounds good. and then find out that someone, you know, who mixed it, be like, this sounds good. Like, who did that? I don't really want, going forward in my career, I feel like there's a big pivot to not having a sound and really just enhancing the sound of the artist and the producer. I mean, Phineas has a sound. Like Phineas, they're the savants. I'm the lucky one that gets to shepherd it into the world, right? I don't have to put my stamp on something that it makes no sense to do that, right? That it's just, that's pure ego to do that. I just want to do my job. Yeah, you know.
So what was the process of what was the co-mix process? Was you had a relationship with Aaron and he said, hey, maybe I want to bring you in on this, or were there trials discussed? And obviously I know that this is you know, I had this conversation with Stuart White about having him on at some point. It's like when you're with a Billie Eilish or a Beyonce or whatever, there's things you can talk about, things you can't talk about. So if at any point it's like that's beyond what you're allowed, please let me know. But I'm so curious about how that comes about, because people talk a lot about co-mixing, and there's so many different roles that overlap these days, and producers are mixing and mastering engineers are taking stem. Like, there's just so many different ways to do it. How did that come about? What did that look like? I'm so curious what you can talk about. Yeah,
I probably should take a more broad, you know, version of we were asked to do this together, and it felt right to have someone so close to the artist. He's
been involved with her for a while. He's done stuff live with her and played with her.
Musical director for the entire, like, I guess, career. And it just made sense to have someone that was very involved in the understanding of the taste that she has, and that she wanted to put forth into this album. You know, in a sense of growth and where the trajectory was. And yeah, I mean, Aaron was just there every day. I'd never opened. I think I worked on one song without him for a few hours because they were at a Grammy rehearsal to perform the Barbie song, the Grammys, and he dipped for a couple of hours. And you know, he found this amazing. I'll speak for him. He found this incredible seat on the back left corner of my couch, and he was able to make very, you know, very discerning comments and notes from there, and there was just moments that I'd be like geeking out for like 10, 15 minutes on an idea, and he would just say, what was that? I'm like, you could tell from back there that little thing. He's like, oh, that's better. Let's just, like, cool. We're good on that. And then he would jump in and like BV balances were something that, like, we, you know, he knows very much, like, where she wants things to sit, and he would jump in and do that. And just that overall secondary perspective. Honestly, this whole year, like this album aside, I've been collaborating on the mix process almost every album. Either the producer or the producer and artist have been involved, and that has leveled up, I think, it leveled up me for like the amount I have to show up and be there and be present and be focused, and also where we've gotten through collaboration of, oh, let's try this. Oh, that wasn't tight. Oh, you know, there was one song on the album that we were at mix 6 and we were listening down, about to bounce and send to Dale to master. And I was like, man, I kind of remember mix 4, something about the energy, like at the end with the drums, it was a little bit more wild. And like, you know, we went back to listen to mix 4. I was like, oh shit, yeah, the drums at the end were better in that one. Like, you know, you can't do that if you don't have the artist and the producer in the room. So having Aaron in the room on that album, having Raul in the room on some Lil Nas stuff, Volta, just having Billy there to hear where the ad libs are coming in, and like feeling like, oh wait, did I overshadow her with like a Phineas keyboard part there? Like that, I thought the synth was really epic. It's like, why is that synth so loud? You know, like the really important, like visceral feelings, not like, does it EQ? Does it sound right? It's like, well, what are we listening to right here?
And decisions. I think,
you know, and I think that Aaron did that so perfectly. It was like having a mix, like having a producer on the couch, but with the language and understanding of engineering. You know, more so like understanding that we're not going to change arrangements here. So we're not talking arrangement. We're talking engineering. We're talking mixing and understanding. But like from a producer perspective, Oh man, I wish I could do that all the time with people. I really think it's special. And I think the best outcomes occur when you're not alone. And I think a lot of mixing is alone. And also I should, on that note, say an album like that and this Camila Cabello album that I did and Aaron Frazier's album and a bunch of work I've gotten to do, I've blocked out time specifically for it where I'm not doing other things. And though I think in the end, in the grand scheme, you theoretically maybe make less money because you're not cramming in like, filling the whole week with like 6 projects or something. I think the outcomes are better and more valuable to the culture by spending the focused time on that, where you're not like, oh, I got to do notes on it. Like most of my life is, all right, I'm going to mix this. Oh, I got to jump to this and do notes. So like
revisions
I'll
on
jump
this,
out of
jump to this. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for these albums this year, I didn't do any of that. I literally blocked for Billy. It was 3 weeks. For Camila, it was 2.5 for this Aaron project. Like working on the Omar Apollo stuff and just blocking out time so that the producers are coming in, and that feels more my style of like how I want to invest my time into the art, into the the creative process.
It definitely feels like there's a big push toward, I guess maybe it's more, whether it's toward or away, it's toward something new and away from the existing thing being this like one-off single, everything is trying to be for the internet. Let's get things done quickly. Let's do a million things. Let's put out lots of stuff. And now I would say one of the big moves for that was seeing the success of the Harry records, which is like him and our friend Tyler and Kid Harpoon, and the 3 of them really digging in and making an album. And that's what it is. It's not singles. It's not lots of features. It's like this idea that maybe there's something special about a body of work and a small group of people and a focus and a commitment. And, better or worse, it is a different thing that yields a different kind of artistic statement. And also it's interesting to hear you talk about all of these things being collaborative. I think you and I have talked about it. Certainly it's been discussed a lot on the Discord. This sort of what are the roles and what are the overlapping roles, like producers, when obviously I'm a mix engineer. There's lots of songs out there that I've mixed. There's also lots of songs that I've produced and basically mixed, but then handed over to someone to the last 5%. But now there is like you're saying, there's sort of a more common thing of co-mixing and people being involved in the mix. And it's interesting to see all that evolve. And it's great to see you, not only go with that flow, but really thrive in it. It's very exciting for me to hear as your friend. Do you see
so
that
much more
as
fun?
Thing? Yeah. Do you see that as
withdrawals? When
are you now doing around and things?
Withdrawals. No, I am for sure. But what I mean is like after doing 3 weeks of that, like the next project I jumped into was the Camila album, and like it was a lot of FaceTiming with El Guincho, Pablo, and Camila in Miami, and then Jasper Harris, who was here, would come in every few days. But like I was having withdrawals of Aaron being there every day and like getting to bounce things off, like to the point where I would like send him an Audio Movers link, like, yo, what do you think of this? Like just to get you just want someone either to tell you something's tight or not tight in the moment, so then you can dive deeper into that. Like there's something beautiful, I'm sure, about an isolated, like a sculptor, and you're sitting in your studio and it's, there's a bunch of clay everywhere and it's fucking chaos, and there's some sort of music, whether it's some like soft Brazilian music or some like crazy loud metal music, like whatever you're into, and you're alone and you're trying to think. That's not how I feel about mixing when there's so many. I used to feel that way, and I think that's not where we're at anymore, where I think so many decisions were made from the begin, from the handheld mic to the last piano that was layered in. To think that I'm going to resculpt this thing from scratch is just not part of my vocabulary anymore. Like that's just not. So I don't know that we're supposed to be doing it alone the entire time. Like, oh, now it's my time. It's my chance to. I hear the record this way. Like, I mean, maybe sometimes, but like most of the time, the vibe is the vibe's cooked. It's baked in. So I think that there's more chance for success as a mixing engineer if you get to collaborate with the producer, with the recording engineer, with the artist, and not have to, like what Spider's saying, body language isn't in the email notes. Like to not have to eat notes in the email with timestamps are just not ideal. Like they work and you can get something great that way. And that is still the majority of my time is doing it that way. But this year it has been flipped, and there's something. Can you imagine a Michael Jackson mix with Bruce Swedian and Quincy Jones and the three of them not together the entire time? Like we've never heard that before. We've heard unreleased versions where a mixer has taken stems of songs that weren't even supposed to come out, and those aren't hits. You know what I'm saying? Sorry. Yeah. Is that a shot? Did I take a shot at something?
No. Just they're fucking grim. Like there's something about like the people in the room at their best making the thing.
Yeah. So exactly. So if I could have more of that, or be a part of more things like that, and make less money, but sharing things, sharing time, and really investing and like. Really prioritizing proper incentives to me, which has always been the music and the art first. And I don't have it in me anymore to go in the room and write songs and engineer from the beginning. I don't really have the passion for that. So my way would be to do it in the mix process and invite people over. I would love to have time to cook dinners for people and like, have my assistant, my engineer, make some notes while I'm cutting up a fish or something. Like I would love to do that more, and really share the space. I think I've grown into this loft, into the gift shop, just in time for this year. Like this year felt like I got to utilize the space as I intended it when I first got it. And having artists come up the stairs and feel inspired to listen here and make notes here, and getting the feedback from the couch or walking around like, oh, we can make decisions here. It sounds good in here. And like, not just me thinking, oh, I have these crazy PMCs in this wildly big space. And like, I think it sounds good, but have people have a visceral reaction and then find out that it translates later. And that's just been, I don't know. I just really validating. We all want to be validated. So this year has been a year of validation after a long time, personally speaking, that you're aware of not feeling that way in the personal life for too long.
We'll keep that for offline. Yeah. Do you you in the last year or so have separated workspace from home? How is that feeling? That's a conversation I feel like I've had a lot with producers recently. My friend Jordan Riley, whose studio I'm in these couple of weeks, who's in Japan. We have to talk about Japan too. Yes. Because you went there, my friends are there. I'm going there this year. Somebody asked in, I don't know, it was the Discord or on the Instagram, asked to your favorite Japanese meal. So maybe we can get into Japan at the end of it. But the idea of, okay, do I have the studio in my home? Do I have the studio as a separate structure? Do I have a separate building? And it's different for different people. It's different for different times in your life. It's different for different roles. How has that been for you? Other than it seems like it's been great. Has that changed your psychology? Hasn't been great?
Hasn't been. It's more stressful. There's two places to manage. It's a lot more financial stress. It hasn't been, to be honest, like if I didn't have this loft, this is a very special place to me. I'm very inspired by it. So I'm going to keep it for as long as I'm in this city, as long as I don't get kicked out. But I understand why people find a house and they put their studio in it, and they in their back house or in the living room, however they want to do it. And then they live and work. And I did that for 10 years. And I love that so much. I love the separation of being able to say, I'm not in tonight. Like I'll hit this tomorrow. Is that cool? And that's it. Cause my house is very zen. I very much made it the opposite of the studio environment, which is like, makes me want to work here. I'm like very inspired by here. The house is like really calm. Like there's always music on, like very chill. It's like warm colors, the tones, the fabrics are everything's really textured. but it is very stressful to have both places. And then, like, you know, my patio is a little bit like unruly right now because I've been so busy at work, and, you know, I have to have someone come clean my, you know, and I'm like, I should be doing that. Like, I'm a grown man. Like, I should clean my own patio and trim my own hedges. I don't have time to do that. So I have like someone coming on Sunday, and I have to manage that, and I have to be available for that. So I don't know, like, first world problems. Like, let's be real. I'm not, you know, this isn't a complaint. It's just that when I was here having a landlord, things were taken care of. When things went wrong, I can keep working. Now I'm managing two places while I'm very inspired to just work. Like, I go through phases of trying to prioritize different things. I'm in full work mode. Yeah. I'm so inspired by what I'm working on. I'm inspired by Japan. We can get there. I'm so excited to go to London and see you in July. And I want to travel a little bit more, but I'm zoned in on work right now, and I feel really great about it.
Do you feel like you said you don't have any interest in writing songs or recording things again. I'm gonna put a prediction that within the next year or two, you're gonna mix an album that you also recorded the vocals on, or you did some recording engineering on, because I think it's part of you still. But do you feel like you are it seems like the collaboration process of your mixing has really been people coming to you for that finishing taste? Because you, like you said, you don't really even have like, you've removed the part of you that is like a sound, and it now seems to be like taste level. Is that a role that you think will continue for a long time? Do you think that, you know, when we talked to Kian, I talked to Kian a couple of weeks ago, and he's making a record. You made a record with St. Vincent, and they're talking sonics from the beginning of the recording process, and they're sending sessions back and forth, and he's mixing as they go. That sort of seems like the other end of the spectrum. Do you feel like this is the role that you're going to do for a long time? Do you feel like you will do larger collaboration things? Will you mix more raw things from scratch, or will it continue to be stems? How do you see that for you and for the industry?
I like the finishing aspect of it a lot. I like the psychological aspect of it, where everyone agrees that this is worth putting out, but they're not stoked on. They don't think it sounds finished yet. That's like, and then not in the mastering engineer role, like where it's nearly done, and you know, super geek moves and overall coverage of the album and sequencing and stuff like that, which has its own speciality that I highly respect and think is a requirement. But for me, I like access to more things and being able to shape things a bit more. I'm just thinking about, like, it's hard to answer that question. I don't think I'll record ever again, really, to be honest with you, unless it's like a live music, like a string quartet or something, or a jazz band. Yeah, jazz band, and mix it totally, without a doubt. I'll do that. Pop vocalist and comp it with them. Nah, I don't.
I don't see you comping a vocal anytime soon.
I've done it a gajillion times. I'm doing it tonight. Yeah, it gives me very minimal joy. But what I was saying earlier, and where I think I can go with this, is that, for example, if you listen to my favorite mix on the Billy album is and favorite song is The Greatest. If you listen to The Greatest and then you listen to I Love It by Camila Cabello and Playboi Carti, neither of them sound like the same person touched it and at the end, and both artists and teams are stoked with how it came out, and I love both of them. That's The Greatest, and have that like compelling, like draw your attention in, like the Camila Cabello mix. That's like attention is grabbed right off the bat. It's loud. It's high energy, and The Greatest draws you in, and it's emotive, and it's just a different thing. And I got to do those within the same 2 weeks of time, and that having access to both of those types of things is really what turns me on musically. So that feels special to me. That's what keeps me going, is multiple genres. And I guess my point to reiterate is that neither of them sound like me, and that's cool.
What do you do differently for those two different vibes? How do you approach them differently?
I should actually should take back that last thing. I think the greatest kind of does sound more like me, because that's how I want to mix music. I just don't always get such high quality recordings. You know, like the second verse in that song with the rubber bridge pan left and right, and this live bass, and these arpeggiations happening, and then that to me is one of the craziest sections of music I've ever got to work on. And I would just loop that for hours just because of how stoked I was to like get a chance to work on that kind of section. What's different? Well, one, you're listening to the rough mixes and it's telling you, and it's just like the I Love It record was so loud and slammed, and you're like, that's sick. Like that is, it can't not sound like that. It can't not distort. Like it can't not have a little bit of that clipped sound, or else like it's not a Cardi voice. Like it can't be you can't get rid of the S's, or it doesn't sound, you know, like a pop Camila Cabello vocal. I can't like, but in the sense of Billy, you want nothing to distract from the lyric, right? You want nothing to get in the way of the emotion that's trying to be conveyed in the lyric. And I Love It is a hype record that's supposed to like turn you on and you know, make you like, I don't know, windows down car all the way to a club. Like I don't even, it tells it yourself. I don't know.
How much discussion was there either with you and Billy and Phineas, or with Aaron, or the whole team about an overall intention for the album? Was there like, hey, we're trying to philosophically do XYZ, or whether it's literal things like we want warmth, we don't want it to be super hyped, or we want it to feel emotional, or were there any of those discussions beforehand? Did you jump in? I'm curious what that was like.
Yeah,
because this idea of doing full albums is really interesting to me.
Yeah, I
really
mean, trying to be a little bit. There's such a respectfully, like, you know, a private group in the creative process that I don't want to talk too much about, like what someone's full intention was that was directed at me. But what I was told once it was decided that I was going to be involved in this, and that Aaron and I were going to take the lead on this, it was make it sound good, like make it sound like a great album, like a timeless classic album. I want it to sound warm. I want it to sound musical. I want to hear the vocal, but I also want to, like, you know, feel Phineas and the musicality of how they've both grown in this album. So the overarching thing was like, let's make this sound good. Let's make this like a full 3-dimensional, great sounding album. And
was there?
You can imagine how excited I was by that.
Yeah.
You know?
You're like, I only want to do that. Was there any label A&R management involvement at all in the creative?
No,
that's what I figured. I'm always curious about them.
Yeah.
What were the challenging parts of it?
Quite a few. Again, like, kind of, you don't want to like disclose too much information. I didn't nail. We were like 4 songs in. I didn't nail one of the mixes on the first go around. For one of my favorite songs on the album, Birds of a Feather. And it's like, I just heard on the radio yesterday. I got so geeked. It was like that thing you do moment when you hear something like that you worked. Like, I haven't had a song on the radio in a while, and like, I don't normally care about that, but like, I would be really. It's not cool to admit this, but I love when I have a song on the radio, just because like my mom gets to hear it.
Everybody loves it.
No, I don't think people. I don't know. I feel like it's not. It's
okay, well, those people are weird or liars. I mean, I guess we're all weird, but that's crazy. You hear a song out in the wild that you worked on is the greatest feeling.
I'll start by saying that when I heard it on the radio, I was like, I'm so glad we went through what we went through about that mix.
What did you not
get right? That was
right?
I mixed it way too pop. It's like the most obvious, like, kind of. It's the only song like in a major key on the album, and it's like the only like obvious pop song on the album. and I make my intent, my instinct was to mix it like a pop song without thinking about it. I just like, I just made it really, it started knocking. It was like big and it was wide. And Phineas was like, well, I'm glad we have like the radio mix on, of this version, but like, I think it needs to be a little softer and a little bit more like, anti-pop type mix, like warmer, darker, like more like the rest of the album. He was completely correct. And I heard it as soon as he came over and said that, I was like, oh yeah, that's obvious. Let's start over. And I just started over and we were working on it together. And then I would say by the end of that, I sent a mix and he was like, it's still not right. Like, I think now it's too soft and it's too this. And it's like, he's right. Like, and then it's when they were, I was saying there was a rehearsal, for the Grammy thing. And I was like, Aaron like sent me a few notes and thoughts. Like he texted me, he's like, I think something like this. And I forgot exactly what he said. And I was like, oh yeah, I know exactly what to do. And like, I just started over again. And this time it was only like maybe like an hour in, and I sent a mix, and it was just like, capital letters like from both of them, like, yes, that's it. Like it was just it was a lot of like to the point where I didn't know, like maybe they would just use the rough mix on one song. Like that would suck to me. Like I want to do a whole album. I love whole albums. So there was a moment where it was just difficult to know whether they were objectively good mixes or not. It's just like, we didn't land on what felt right for the song for them. And that's what matters. So, I thought maybe I'd mess that one up or something. That was a difficult moment.
I was just saying, did you have the ego moment of like, well, what the fuck do you guys want?
No.
Like I made it pop and I made it. Just no, you were like, let me get it right.
I was like, this is I'm wrong here. Yeah. Something's not. I didn't do the right thing. Very much. I would spend time walking around the loft with the rough mix just playing through the speakers on loop, being like, what does this want to be? And then I would solo the drums. The loop of the drums mixed with the live drums, like it had a very specific interaction that I was kind of falling apart in my mix for some reason. And then point being, I figured it out at some point, but I knew when I sent the first mix that there was something about it that was great, but it wasn't right. And then when I sent the second mix after we worked on it together, I was like, I don't like this, but maybe they'll like this, and that's cool. But they didn't like that. And like, I kind of knew that wasn't really it. And then the third time, but I guess the point of talking about that story as the one that didn't work out is that you have to relinquish the ego in that circumstance, because they are the ones that are right. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to assert myself, like, except for, small things of like, oh, I think that the drums were better in mix 4 than mix 6, like whatever. For very specific things, I will assert that I think maybe it was better at one point, but as an overall, like, feeling note, like, this doesn't feel right, I'm supposed to say, yes, it's right. Like, and truly stand behind that. Like, I don't do that for anybody, let alone like two people that I look up to. I look up to their work. I've been a fan since the beginning. So I felt very lucky and privileged to have, the chance. So if anybody's going to tell me that something's not right, I want it to be them. And
yeah, I imagine it's easier to hear from them, but it is something that we've talked about before, and which is this idea of demoitis as some sort of like terrible syndrome that artists are afflicted with or whatever. It's like, if they get something back and it doesn't feel right to them, it's your job to figure out how to make it feel right. Correct. Because they made a thing that they loved and it's their art. And yeah, you may like yours better, but you're not going to have to go stand behind it for the rest of your career. Exactly. It's their album.
Exactly. I just wanted her to be so stoked. Like, that's all that mattered to me. Like, you want those ad-libs louder? I want them louder. I want them louder than you want them now. Like, oh shit, that thing? Like, yes, that's actually the coolest part about this. Why isn't that jacked up? Like, oh, fuck, yes. Those are the moments when the artist calls out the thing that you're like, oh, I remember that thing. It's only like 2 milliseconds. And you're like, whoa, that is so cool,
Are there other, you talk about not going through your template and starting from scratch. Are there other things that you discovered on particular songs or particular moments? You're talking about things like SSL channels. You don't have to start naming plugins, but are there particular things you're like, I never used to do this and now I'm doing this, or I used to always do this and I just didn't at all on this album? What are some other moments?
We can geek out for a minute. Fast attack compression. I've been anti-fast attack compression for probably like 10 years. Like, I love transients, and I don't want to compress the transients. I want the transients to come through, and then if we're going to use compression, we're going to get it after the fact. To the point where I would do like the slowest attacks possible on any compression I would use, and boost transients with the transient shaper after. I'm the opposite right now. I like overused fast attack compression on things that just made things sound a little softer and like rounder on the edges. So like we can like kind of vignetted things. Like I wanted things to feel like a little bit mysterious, like the Chihiro mix. Like, you could imagine Chihiro like fucking slamming, but it's not. Like, there's honestly not that much attack on that bass. It's pretty soft, but it feels like a deep house record, like a late night 3 a.m. Berlin like club record. And like to add transients to that, like, wouldn't make sense. It has to be like sweaty and like, I don't know. So I experimented a lot with like detransienting on a lot of elements that I think, like, if anybody's heard me talk on this podcast for the last few years, I'm always about transients. Like, to be honest, right now, and Volta and I are communicating a fair amount about like what the analog realm did to transients and soften things like consoles, like
Valentine thing.
Yeah. Well, but he would like, but he's like he's still really punchy. I mean, like, that's the thing.
It's punchy, but it's coming off consoles and tape machines, which soften all of it. And then it's how much do you get back? Yeah,
which is kind of how what we were trying to go for on the Lunch record. Like, Lunch drums are punchy, like a No Doubt record, but without like the crazy 8K, like, cause that's not the Billy sound. Like, that's not her thing to be like super bright and offensive up there. But like, it's more in the mid range. It's more in like the warmth of the punch. And I think that was a really cool, that is very intentional. And in order to do that, you need to compress. Like, there's there's parallel compression on those drums and things that I've said for hours on here that I don't do. Like, that's how we got those tones, is parallel processing, H3000 on the drums, like widening happening only on like the high end of it, like, and keeping like things ethereal and wide, but like, so it's out of the way of the voice, and spreading the high end, a few of them, but Lunch and just like super geek things that just like get everything. The whole point is, how do we have the energy and get it out of the way of her? I was gonna say voice?
The transients, getting rid of the transients will help her, the clarity of her vocals pop out, which is what's great about, I mean, the vocals feel very loud on the album, but obviously they're not super bright. And and somehow it doesn't feel like they are overwhelming the music. The music feels like this great bed around them. And obviously a lot of the songs are different, but that pulling out transients allows for more vocal clarity without having to brighten up the vocal.
So if I would say anything, like, to Aaron and I, if I would give any credit to Aaron and I, like, that was intentional. Yeah. Like, him and I talked about that. And that, I feel like that is what got the reaction from them, of like, oh, we both exist here. Like, we're both a big part of this album now. Both Billy and Vinny is what I mean. It's like, you could hear his arrangement skills while obviously she's the superstar. And I think the way to do that is what we're talking about. But yeah, I did a lot of things that I haven't done in a long time. And man, there's like Kramer Pi, compressor on some things, like Waves plugins that I haven't used in years. That, you know what I mean? And
Waves endorsement incoming. Let's go.
They tried last week. I'm not endorsing anybody, because I think when I'm learning look, we're just trying to make great great art, and whatever tool is needed to make the thing is what we use. And I don't want to have to use something anymore. Not that I've ever had to. It's kind of always been yours and my thing. We just kind of like hate on things, love on things, and I'm just doing things that I wasn't doing for a while.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about what we both do and what we've decided to do with these conversations is we'll just say whatever we want and fully reserve the right to change our opinions 6 months later, which is great.
Aaron is very big on textures, just like me. I think that's why we were a good team. So textures, finding saturation types that instead of EQing, they bring out the characters in sounds and that's been I think that's why we align and why this kind of came about is because I've worked with Aaron before on some other stuff back in the day when he produced, and I think we're kindred in the sense where we like saturation and we like textural like live organic sounds, and then if you're going to have a synthetic sound, kind of treating it as if it were a real instrument. And a lot of that is tape and tubes and emulations and saturations.
Yeah. So talk about that a little bit. Those people that are checking us out for the first time or haven't gotten through the 9 million hours of nerding we've done. We have done whole hours and maybe multiple hours about saturation, but I'm always curious about it because I'm always like, oh my God, I'm obsessed with this new thing. And then I do it. And then 3 months later, I'm like, I'm doing way too much of that thing. Let me try another thing. And that's the cycle of being, I think, a record maker and a creative person. What are you doing these days? Or what did you do with the Billy album with saturation? Are you doing band specific sort of richening on certain things? Are you,
mostly
of
overall
saturation, bus saturation? What's like clipping? Like what's, talk about saturation in the album, because it does feel like there's some interesting moments with it that sound like things you would do, and then other things which is like, that's a great sound. I wonder if that's Jon treating a keyboard the certain way. Like,
I wonder what you would, if you were to pick out any specific song or moment that you felt like stood out to you that I could be more specific on. There's minimal clipping. There's a little bit of clipping on the Ozone maximizer, like at the soft clip that's on the end chain of the maximizer. And Aaron likes Devil Lock and Decapitator still, and I've revisited the sound toys.
They're great.
I stopped using them for years. They're still great.
They're so good. They're so great.
Yeah.
Shout out Sound Toys, who does not endorse us. I paid full price. But they're great. Are you delivering for whatever reason, there are a lot of questions about delivering for mastering. And obviously you and Dale mastered it. Yes. You and him have a relationship that goes way back, and we've talked about that a lot before. Are you delivering multiple versions to him? Or are you delivering here's my Ozone maximizer and a little bit of clipping?
One version, yeah.
And then how much much loudness is he adding? Is he doing much like little different for different songs, obviously? But
yeah, the album was delivered at probably, I don't know, like -10. So we probably kept it similar volume. I think a couple maybe were -11, -12 that he had to create gain. But at that level, like there's room for him to do that. Yeah. Man, he was a superstar. Like he dialed in that vocal like crazy. He also, on this Camila Cabello album, he just blew me away with what he did to the overall consistency of the vocals. Like I can't wait for that album to come out, because that, like in the pop sense of what high end feels like to me, that I don't normally mix with, like that's it. So that's like, we can talk about all of these, because I love the way the Billy album sounds, and it's one of my favorite albums sonically that I've worked on, if not the favorite. But the Camila album is so much more high end and like so much more obvious pop kind of thing, which is I don't do regularly. And the way Dale finished it was so exciting to me. And the same thing on Billy. Like he brought this cohesive finishing to the whole vocal from start to finish, while maintaining everything else basically intact. Like we mastered it together. Aaron and I went in with Dale, and like Aaron and I were on the couch, and Dale would be making these like 0.2 moves, or we're like, whoa, the reverb is more clear now. Like, what am I? He's like, oh, I don't know. I just did this little thing. And I'm like, he just picked the right moves. And like, I don't get a chance to go do that anymore with him. I used to show up. But I think now I'm leaning towards, in the last couple albums I've been doing with him, I've been giving him non-limited mixes again, and letting him, and then a screenshot of my limiter and having access to that. And a couple of things I did with Rory recently as well, like giving unlimited. And I'm between how I feel about that right now. That's something new for me, for sure. But when you're talking about saturation, a lot of it is baked in before the mix bus. So I wouldn't say that it's mix bus specific saturation on any of the songs. So I mean, the Lavery is getting hit, so there's some sort of clipping happening. But at that level on that album, it's not that noticeable.
Yeah, -10 is not going to be super noticeable.
Yeah.
And so are you doing lots of, I mean, you said that Aaron likes the Sound Toys stuff. Are you doing band specific saturation too? Either Spectre,
I don't
Saturn,
like that.
Those sort of things?
Spectre for sure. Saturn, no. I think we tried it on a couple of things. I don't really
very
like
different
Saturn.
sounds.
Yeah, I think it made it on a couple of things. Maybe on the vocal on like a song or two, but no. Someone just said VLC. No outboard gear really on this album. I think we tried the VLC on like one guitar that maybe it made the cut on something. Maybe Skinny.
That's interesting. So almost no outboard whatsoever.
No, just the mix bus, which is my Wes Audio SSL style compressor with no real gain reduction. Just tonality. Like Chihiro has the iron setting in. It's like a little bit gnarlier, like grittier sounding.
What is that?
It's just a different transformer. It's a iron transformer, but it's mostly just straight tone coming, straight makeup gain coming from that just to hit the Lavery with no reduction, no compression happening. I'm sure there's a little bit.
What do you find that it adds? Is it just a little bit of density somewhere? Is it?
Yeah. It's a density. It's just kind of flattening of the whole mix. Like brings up the back wall a little bit. There's some harmonic distortion. This THD setting on that I like. That like even just at 1%, like it's enough. So that might have made the album. I don't even, to be honest, I think it's all zero. It's all zeroed out except for just gain. I just like hitting the Lavery on songs that I can get away with it on. I don't really like it on 808s. Volta and I have very much experimented with the Lavery and the 808. Doesn't seem to be good friends. The Lavery and organic
just squishes it in a weird way.
Squishes it. It changes the harmonics. It literally changes the sound. Yeah. So anything with 808 that's coming to me, I'm in the box fully now.
You got to be very careful with big, long, subby low end. Big, clean, long, subby low end.
So I feel like I'm basically now listening to every song in the box and out of the box through the Lavery, and I decide which one I like better. And I'm very not precious about. I used to be precious about like it needing to hit some sort of analog wall. I've been very opposite of that and really understanding when. And I should have known this better. Like working with Tony always did that. Tony, like every song that came in, half that Beyonce self-titled album was in the box and half was through his like Neve summing situation. And he was so non-emotional about it. He's just like, oh, it's better in the box. Like, oh, the Shadow Hills master bus compressor doesn't sound good on this. Like he never gave a fuck. And like, for some reason I started giving a fuck about this. So, I'm not precious about that at all. I didn't feel the need. Literally, we tried the VT5 on a voice, and Aaron and I were like, no. And then I think we tried it one more time. I was like, oh, on this one, maybe. And it was like, no. You know, like, I don't, why keep trying the thing that's not, it's just not. So yeah, almost no analog gear. Spectre for sure. So I guess that's band specific. Maybe an exciter or two. But I don't really like crossover point saturation things. You
start doing narrow bands, you're in a lot of trouble. Phase gets real weird.
Yeah, I also just think some of the best sounding records were done in an era where you didn't have band specific, besides EQs, obviously, you didn't have band specific things. You'd have to parallel those things, so you could band pass and over compress with like an 1176, like. Just the mid-range. That's very like, Eric Valentine concept of things like you want a snare to sound like it's exploding. Let's like mult that out to another thing and then blend that high impact, like over compressed snare version.
Distort the body of it and then blend it back in.
Yeah, so I think that's more where we went with this album. And I would experiment with parallels like on basses and on guitars and on things like that. So that was more just back like to what I was doing when I started mixing for the first time, learning these techniques, and then kind of went anti that for a while. So.
How many mix versions for on the Billy album? Like you talked about, yeah,
anywhere from 2 to 7. I don't think we went more than 7 on anything.
What were?
But that's what happens when you're in the room.
Yeah,
That's what happens when you're in the room. You're going to get less revisions. I think a lot of them were at like 3 to 4.
And it was like mix revisions being you're in there, you're in the room, you get it together, you get it done, you get a bounce, you live with it. Then everybody comes back and tweaks.
I spent a day and a half with Aaron on every song, and then would have them come every second or third day to listen to that song, start another one, come listen to 2. Now we have 2. And we just made it our way through the album from the first.
Now, a day and a half is a lot more time than
I ever do.
You often spend or ever have before. Other than Billy being one of the biggest artists in the world, what is the reason for that?
We had the time.
You made
imagine mixing a song all day. You're fatigued, and you have to send it by the end of the night because they need it that night. We didn't have to send it.
I don't have to imagine it. I do it all the time.
You know what I mean? Well, everyone else.
I always go,
you know
I'm going to check this on fresh ears and then I will send.
Right. Okay. That's great. I don't always have the luxury of doing that.
I don't either. But that's what I hope for. Yeah.
And that was a big Aaron call. Like, no, let's not send this. Like, let's wake up tomorrow, check it in the car. I would go to the gym every morning for my zone 2 cardio workout on the treadmill. And I would listen to the sequence up to where we left off the day.
Did you go song? They already knew the album sequence and you started with the first song? That's interesting.
I didn't hear my assistant, Brad. He prepped them. I didn't hear the songs until they were on the computer.
Very interesting. So you agreed to work on this, obviously, and they said, great, here's the files. And the first thing you did was listen to the first song on your rig. You weren't listening to rough mixes, or you didn't listen to the album all the way, nothing like that. You started with song 1 and presumably
it's better. It's better because the whole thing. Yeah, of course. There was a moment where I think it's L'amour de ma vie, that when we got to the ending where it goes into like hyperpop mode, he was like, I was waiting to do this, so by the time you got to there, never have hearing it, I wanted to get your reaction, because it's just like so insane at the end of this like Edith Piaf song. You just get this crazy like, PC music moment.
It's wild to have your assistant hear the entire Billie Eilish album before you've even listened to song 1. And so he's like stoked to have you get to track 9, because that's where that's so funny.
Yeah. So I would wake up every morning after and I would just listen to the sequence up to where we had on loop, and I would just listen to the cohesion and be like, okay, the vocal on Lunch needs to go to Chihiro, and I would be like, I'd come in and like, I'd have my own notes that I wanted to address, and Aaron would have his own notes, and obviously they would have notes, and like, so I was just like literally living that album for 3 weeks. Everywhere I went. And I actually would say that I don't feel like it was over listened to or overcooked. I think every time I would do that, I would find just something about it that I like, I was like, this could be a little bit better. And it's not like a substantial note that other people maybe are going to notice. It's just like a little thing for the cohesion aspect of what it should feel like throughout the album. So by the time we got to like all 10 songs are mixed, look, this is like specific learnings from this album. This is what I'm taking into every project that I'm working on since then. I think we're talking about a very like, to me, and obviously like, people are listening to it. It's an important album, one of the, biggest artists of our time. But, for the geeks on this, it's not, that don't get a chance to, aren't as lucky as I am to get to touch that album. Like there's any album can be that album for you where you literally are eating, sleeping, and breathing this. Like, when I used to produce, I would have dreams of like melodyning I would not be able to sleep because I was stoked on a song that I was working on, and like I could see the melodies, and like I didn't sleep well during this. Like I would wake up and be like, oh shit, like did I kill the guitar in this one? Like, and meanwhile, where this came from, I didn't even send the mix yet, so this is just on me. Like only Aaron and I have heard this, and I'm still like losing sleep over. Did I do that? Did I do a good job? Is this like worthy? You know?
Well, there's the high stress aspect, but also like, I think that's how I make my best records too. And I think that's there's a big difference between sitting in front of the speakers for 14 hours a day versus working on the records, but then living your life with the songs around you.
Yes.
My best work is done when I'm in the studio every day and I'm focused and I'm working, but I also have bounces and I'm just walking around, I'm listening to stuff and put it on in the background. So it just, it's like all the studies about, they give test subjects, people in whatever studies, they teach them a thing and they give them a test before they go to sleep. And then they give them the same version of the test and they wake up and they're like 30% better because your subconscious brain is going to process things, going to process sounds, going to process what you're working on. And there is something about staring at a screen and listening to speakers that you by definition can't get perspective from it if you're just staring at it. So having it in the background and living and breathing is a huge thing, whether you're a mixed engineer or a songwriter.
The noise in the gym, how it's I've heard it in a couple of I've heard in a couple of restaurants, and it sounds really good in restaurants. It's like I wanted to hear what it. I don't really go out very much, so like I don't really hear things that I work on often. I go to restaurants, but like usually you can't hear it in the restaurant, or they're just playing like old hip hop, like in most LA restaurants. Like I didn't work on that. Like Tony Maserati did, but like
a lot of Maserati mixes in the fancy restaurants.
But let's just jump back to something that I wanted to talk about, the not having listened to the songs. Like we might have talked about this at some point, but just to reiterate, there's a very real reason why I do that. I think that the last chance that we have, or that an artist has, for fresh perspective with someone that's going to touch the album, the song, is the mix engineer that has access. Again, this is pre-mastering. We have access to more parts and more ability to change in our position. So I want to just sprint on a song for an hour unhinged. Like I just want to hear it and go, whoa, that's crazy. I get to work on this today. And then I want to dive in for an hour, whether the artist is in the room or not. So if I already have listened to it in my car, like artists, producers, they send rough mixes, like so excited for you to work. I don't listen to them. I don't want to know. I don't want you to hire me just because I like your song. I want to be hired because you think I can bring something to the song, and you've already made that assumption and you think I'm the guy for the job. I don't want like, hey, are you into this? It's like, I'm into it because you think I should be into it. So like, I'm in. It's very rare that I'm like, I hear a song and go, I don't get this. It's like, at this point, with all my relationships and the people that I spend my time
there's
with,
there's a lot of pre-built-in trust with all these relationships.
So I want to hear it for the first time when I have access to the stems. That's all. It's that simple.
Going to listen to the first song on the Billie Eilish album and be like, you know what? I don't think I'm going to do this after all.
Right? Yeah. So you might as well maximize the moment.
Yeah.
No rough mixes. I didn't listen. No, I don't do that for anybody though. It's not her specific. It's everybody.
Did you ever reference the rough? You did reference the rough mixes
always.
Once you got
my God, always.
Yeah.
I mean, I do it every minute.
Yeah.
I'm a big rough mix, rough mix guy.
But you don't listen to the rough mix until you've given yourself a whack at it? Or when you sit down, do you also you listen to the stems as they're prepped for you by your assistant? How quickly do you go in? I mean, imagine it depends on the song, but
I mean, after a listen down, I listen down with my stems, and then I might just A/B quick. Like it's in the session, so I can just shift or have a button to press. Like I'll A/B on my first listen sometimes just to make okay, where am I at? Where's the vibe? But no, on those songs, like. No, I just listened to the stems.
And one of the functions of your assistant is to get up the stems in front of you such that it sounds as close as possible to the rough mix, and then you work from there. So
and when they don't, a disclaimer to why they don't sound like the rough, because maybe the producer said, hey, we don't even like our rough. Hey, we did this on a console. We don't have the exact mix bus. Hey, the producer did, you know, whatever the relationship is, like Brad will know and he'll tell me where things are at. But yeah, 9 out of 10 times it should sound exactly like the rough from where we're starting. Yeah.
Are there any other bits of this process that you want to share? I mean, you know, we can continue to chat a little bit. We've talked for about an hour. I'm sure we'll talk more about this and more about these future projects. I do want to maybe do a live when the Camila album comes out,
cool.
and about that one. But any other thoughts from this this process? Things you've learned, things that you want to impart, things that you switched up from your old ways. Anything else about it? I mean, this is let's just say it also. This is a huge moment for your career and a really fucking great thing. And congratulations. And it's well deserved. And I know that it's been a couple of years of us hanging out and talking, and, you know, you've had some great success, but this is a big thing. How are you feeling? What are you taking from it? What do you
feel good. Honestly, like, you know, I love, no, I'm stoked. And I'm stoked that they're stoked, you know, like the conversations that we've had since it's come out, just like the excitement and that's really what it's about. Like the fact that they're happy, the fact that Aaron and I have gotten even closer as friends through this. I'm feeling really good about it. I also am a worker, so I'm like, what's next? You know, like I'm very grateful. And I want to, I'm avoiding talking about like the real truth, which is I haven't really been able to be excited about it because, as we know, and I should pay tribute to the fact that one of my best friends and brother in mixing, Mike Miller, passed away. So I would have been geeking out with him over this, like getting the calls being like, yo, what did you do to that vocal? And we'd be like, nothing. And him be like, nah, show me. It's got to have something. Like, I don't know, an SSL compressor. Like, use SSL. You know, I can like imagine those conversations that didn't get to happen because he passed the day after it came out. And so we got to celebrate the release at the forum that night with the team, and that was exciting. They played it. And then that next day, actually that night, I left the party and went right to work on another album that Volta brought me in on. That is also very exciting. That we'll talk about at some point. And I worked all night that night, all day. I had to deliver like a bunch of songs in 3 days, and then the Mike news came that Saturday, and I haven't really been able to celebrate it as much because I would have liked to chat with him about it. It's a little bit weird to not be able to talk to the dude that calls you. Like the fact that he's not in the comments right now is crazy to me. And I was almost going to cancel this because like he's not in the comments. It's weird. Like thank God Spider's in the comments, you know, like where's Mike heckling, you know? So I'm a little bit, just pay a little tribute on this episode to, you know, he was just getting started and we had a little memorial this weekend. They were playing some of his Atmos mixes and just how good he got so fast, from just being in the room with me and like, you know, he has the most clocked hours, I think, in this loft of any engineer, like just showing up being like, what's going on? But come through, I'm mixing, you know what I mean? Yeah. So he got really good really fast. And we were listening to some of the mixes and like, I know when PMCs make something sound good or it sounds fucking phenomenal on those PMCs. And he knew how to make those speakers sing. He's very, very talented. And we lost a good one too soon. So I haven't really been able to celebrate, to be honest, too much.
Mike Miller is a big I didn't know him well, but I know he was really well liked by a lot of people, a very talented guy. And it's sad for that to happen. But certainly I know that he would certainly be geeking out and definitely talking shit in the comments, which is great.
But the thing about this album being out in the world, and you everyone knows that I like to work on albums that are high stakes. It's no secret that I'm competitive and that I love ears on records. I love the ability to affect a large amount of nervous systems through sonics. And there's not much there's not much more streams by an artist than an artist like Billy. So this album will live on. So I will be able to continually celebrate this album. So I was in no rush to feel like I had to celebrate this while processing and still processing and grieving the loss of a dear friend. I will have plenty of chances to hear this in the world. I listened to it today on the way down here. I actually really love the album, like as a fan, and I can listen to it from a fan perspective, which is very exciting to me. I don't think about the mixing anymore. I just like, shit, that sounds good. But like, I don't think about it that way. Yeah. I'm listening to her as I would, and I'm very happy about it all.
I don't know if we've ever really had this conversation. Somebody asked me about this, maybe it's earlier today, about songs that you've worked on that you hear out in the wild, the hits and whatever, things about there. Are there any things you listen to them and you're like, I would have done that different? Like, are you that kind of person where you're like, I should have, the vocals a little.
I'd be lying if I said no, but I don't really think that. Like, there's something I can do. I like to learn from it. I think I'll probably feel that way about, I don't know. It's like, I love the way that this album sounds. Like,
we never talked about that, so I don't imagine you're that way. I'm not really that way either.
I'm really
that
not precious.
I'm that way in the first few weeks because I'm like, I could have just, but then I let it go because it's like, once you make stuff,
I have a few moments.
People's now.
I have a few moments when I listen down, I'm like, that could have been a little brighter. Like maybe it was a little bit too dark, but also I remember we tried to go brighter and it didn't work. Like it started to sound like too much pop. Like it needed to be a certain thing. But there are moments where like maybe we didn't get it exactly right. Maybe I didn't do the right boost there and it didn't translate. But like, I don't know. It sounds fucking sick to me. And I feel that way about everything that's out to a degree where I'm just like, someone said that was ready to go. So like, let's move on. I can't go back in time. I don't want to go back in time. I'm not like an overtly nostalgic person. I am a bit this week with like photos of my friend, which is not normal for me. I don't really like look back at photos.
I think that's appropriate, my friend. I think that's appropriate.
I'm a pretty like try to be present type person, which to a degree is a negative thing where I don't really think of the future too much. But I try not to live in the past either. So I try to be as present as possible. And I think that's what makes me a good mix engineer. I get really zoomed in to the album. I would say like I would disclose one cool thing that was said about that was probably the nicest compliment in a weird way that I've ever gotten while mixing, which I forgot which one of them said it, but like they recognized that any note that they had when they were in the room, I knew exactly where that thing was in less than a second. And it might've been the most obscure, like ad-libby thing or like weird synth thing or keyboard thing. I was so, and they made a comment about like that, where on the timeline that you knew like literally everything. I basically like, I know every millisecond of that album. And I pretty much am like that with everything I touch. I pretty much know every sound. Like that's why we color coordinate all the stems. I'm so process oriented to know like the sessions are so tight and nipped and tucked, so I can fly through and remember everything that happens for every millisecond. And when I see other people's sessions not color coded and like automation points are all over the place, I'm like, how can you like, I didn't even see that sound. Like I know every sound and every song that I mix, and it's a little bit OCD, but in that moment when, hey, that ad lib that goes, like just a quick little thing. I'm like, oh, that's in the second verse. And that's exactly right there. It's right before the pre drops in. And I don't have to ask like, where is that again? Just like that to me, I felt seen, in that, in that moment, because I've been that way since I was a kid. Like I don't care what I'm working on. It can be any artist, any level. You hired me. I'm going to live in your song. And I hope I don't grow out of that. I hope I don't ever like get so busy where I don't feel the same way about that, about records. I feel really lucky.
Yeah, I mean,
to do this.
Yeah, your ability to do that is part of what keeps you at the highest level. It's like some combination of skill set, experience, taste, and focus. And the focus is a part that I guess we don't talk about a lot, but because it's kind of in our personality. Like you either have the ability to sit in front of a thing and just tweak and tweak and tweak, or you don't. You can't really. Maybe you can learn that. I don't know. I've never really thought about that actually. Because like when I was talking to a young artist the other day about like, you know, when I started out, I didn't really know how to be a human being if I was working, because I would just get into something and then 10 hours later I'd be like, oh, I didn't eat anything today. And I had to learn how to not be that way. And I don't think you can teach yourself to be that kind of obsessive insane. You can probably teach a lot, you know, aspects of it, but that level of kind of neurotic focus is something that is an important part of being a professional. And you definitely have.
I mean, I'll say that this is controversial, but Manny Marroquin has been known.
Let's go.
Manny Marroquin has been known to say not everybody can mix. And though Ratatouille is one of my favorite movies of all time, and Gusteau says anyone can cook, I actually agree with Manny. I don't think anyone can mix, and I think you need a hypersensitivity and attention to detail and focus to be a great mix engineer. Where I think as a producer and a songwriter, you could also have that skill set and obsess over, but you can also just have pure vibe where you just like lay down savant level parts and like it just becomes, you know, Nirvana or something. Like I think that you can get away with more. I think as a mixer, you do have to be more than 50% like overtly hyper focused, capable. And I think that if I've thought about him saying that, and I've always believed that. I don't know if he still holds that, you know, to himself. But I remember hearing him say that, and like people not being down. I'm very down with that. I actually do think, I think there's too many mix engineers. And I think there's a lot of great ones. And I know you probably disagree with me because like you're actually more into the democratization of music than I am, as a whole, which I've learned to like fully support your vision there. And I think I was more against that. And I do now love it when it comes to the creation of it. Yeah. But when I think about the mix engineer's role and what finished records have felt like for more decades than they haven't, there is a person, a human at the end that is so deliberate about their moves. Yeah. And
Look, I mean, I think you're totally right. The way I would phrase it, or the way I understand it, is that someone in the process, if you're making a contemporary record at the highest level, somebody in the process has to be an obsessive, insane person. It's very hard. Maybe you can sort of accident your way into it, but if you want consistent records that compete, and not necessarily with loudness or brightness or whatever, but just compete consistently, or live in the same place. Maybe we get competition language out of it, but just exist in the same playlist and whatever. And you want to do it consistently, somebody in your process has got to be insane. You can be a writer and producer and be all vibe and throw down a million things. Somebody's got to put it together. You can be a writer, you can be circuit, and you can be extremely detail oriented and be doing all the parts. And, there are people who have all of it or have, multiple pieces of it. But I think you're absolutely right. And it's interesting to hear you talk about, because, this is a co-mix, and then it's of an album that is essentially made by two people in relative isolation, I assume. They don't tend to have lots of collaborators and co-producers, and they're very detail oriented from everything that I can understand. So you've got detail oriented, but then it takes a crazy person like you who can actually go through it and go like, I have it all mapped out. And that thing, I got that right here. Like you become a part of the process that is essential. And I think you're absolutely right. I mean, this is something that I struggle with too, where if I'm doing too much, if I'm doing lots and lots of production revisions, all of a sudden I can't just be the person that comes in and does the mix, because I don't have perspective on it and I'm lost in it. And I don't have that, like, here it is, I'm listening to it for the first time, and now I've got, like, that thing is really important in the process of making records.
Yeah, nobody listens to music that Phineas has created with his sister and thinks that nobody from the beginning, wasn't thinking about the details, like it's the most so if I could relinquish some of that neuroticism, that artists and producers have, because they feel like I also have it, I will now take 10% of that weight off your shoulders, put it on mine. I'll take 100 if I'm allowed, but I'll take that weight off your shoulders, and I will pay attention to what you've delivered. I will pay the closest attention, so you could relax for a minute and feel a sense of relief that you're not alone anymore. And I think that that's what the mixer's job is. That's something that I don't think everybody has. That's what I mean by that. I think Manny has it. I think Serban has it. I think the best to have done it. I think Josh Goodwin has it. Like, I think Tizio has it. Like, these people that are just, that's what they do. That's what they do. And then they also balance their life, but we're all speaking the same language in just different vernaculars. Like, it's different.
Yeah. And increasingly, as people have the ability, producers and writers have the ability they have the same mixing tools, especially if, you no longer have a console, you no longer have lots of outboard gear dominating the processing. It's 99% plugins, that happen before it comes to a mixer, with a mixer, whatever. What a mix engineer is increasingly becoming is that trusted, taste level experience person at the end who can put it all together and de-stress by someone that you can really trust. Yeah.
I mean, this isn't the best analog, but I was so inspired by Djokovic saying that every player on the ATP tennis tour has a great forehand and a great backhand, but what separates the Grand Slam champions is their mental game, right? Like, we all have the same access to tool. I know everyone knows that you can add high mids to a vocal and it's going to jump out of the speakers more. We all know that. It's a choice of when to make those decisions. And I think that's taste, and that's what we've been talking about. The skill set should be mastered over decades of time and then exist in the background. So you're just sprinting through these records, instinct, collaborating, and we shouldn't be talking about those things. We should just be feeling them, but you have to practice. That's why I said I feel like there's too many mix engineers, because I think tutorials show moves that can be made when sometimes you just don't have to make the moves. There's so many keyboard parts, guitar parts on this album that we're discussing that if I turn one up and another one down, the section falls apart. If I put a plugin on one of those sounds and I boost some presence because it's so cool. Like, there's so many like really cool sounds, like whirly parts. You're like, I want more transients. The minute you put more transient or more focus on that thing, it all falls apart, because that is like a symphony. Like Teo Helm, another one of my favorite young producers, he had on one of these Omar Apollo songs that I got to mix. There's like what I just call a symphony of piano. There's like 9 piano parts that create one piano. It's gorgeous. It's just like an absurd thing. And he comes over to tweak mixes, and I brought that up to him. He's like, all right, well, I was thinking that the balance of this one could be a little, maybe more of this one. Every move we made, we were both like, nah, it's not better. Like, leave it how you had it. Like, I sent it all to a bus, and those 9 tracks were treated as one thing. And the same thing with Phineas. You turn a balance and it just shifts, and it's not the same thing emotionally. So if I have an ego of I need to put a plugin or a thing on everything, then I'm changing the emotional capacity of that arrangement, and then it's not my job if it doesn't need to do that. So that's what I mean. Like, I know I can compress. It doesn't want it. It just wants to be left alone. And maybe this group of things gets turned up together as one, just so we get more of that sensation. But for me, I learned a lot. We taught we were maybe in closing. I just like what. I mean, I don't really have to go. I'm just saying, like, there is something to be learned from the. I don't know. I feel like the last year and then this week has just been like a lot of loss, like in life, and just like feeling the sense of loss, whether it's death and permanent loss to like losing gigs because people weren't feeling it, like losing a relationship and like all the things. There was a lot of loss in many ways, and what I learned from that was to change things, and I think what I was doing. I was always doing something. I'm such a doer. I'm like, I'm going to cook this thing. I'm going to go to this place. Like I just do. I love doing. And I just, with this album and everything since, I just like, I don't want to do. I don't need to do. It's doing it. And I think just so holistically speaking, I'm just attempting to do less and be more available for the things that just be what they are and be ready for it. And
I love that, and I feel like I'm debating whether we launch into more. It has been about 90 minutes, which has been amazing. Maybe we come back sometime soon and catch up on. There's lots of other sort of adjacent to Billy questions and then other things unrelated. Maybe we come back and do another one of these soon. I think we've done a very solid 90 minutes, and
let's just come back and do it again.
It's good to be back and good to chat with you as always, my friend, and. Yeah, here we are. It's kind of nice to do this again, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, let's do it again soon. Let's not wait.
All right, man. I love you. It's good to see you. And thank you guys for watching. We'll put this up on audio and whatnot soon. But thanks everybody. Thanks, Jon.
Good hang. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.